All right, Pisces. So, in order to get to the big dream or the bigger picture here, you're going to have to pay attention to the smaller details first before you do anything too quickly. So, investigate, look closely, ask questions, and think before you act, and then chop wood. Chopping wood, chopping wood. This is talking about how when you engage in everyday tasks in a meditative way, that you kind of get your aha moment and you get that clarity and that breakthrough, and it brings you closer to what it is that you're wanting. But this is saying that you need to take your attention away from the big goal, the bigger picture here, in releasing any kind of attachment to an outcome with this. And I think that this is your advice because with investigate, we're talking about things that are not clear and you needing to look at the fine print and, pay close attention to, what is going on before you make any important decisions. And I don't think that, anything bad is happening here. I just think that, the details are important, right? The devil's in the details, so to speak. All right, Pisces, here's your overall. The sun, the sun, the sun. Very nice. Very nice. So the sun being the overall, this could definitely be talking about some things coming out, things being brought to light, new energy, feeling revitalized. The sun is always a good thing. Even in the reverse, it's just saying that there may be a little bit of a delay in, having energy restored to you. But I still see this as a good thing. Now, in the past, and it's perfect that you have clarity as the overall. So the Seven of Cups is the past. Looking at that, there is at least some emotional attachment to what could have been. Where you're talking about fantasizing about how things could have worked out and having that kind of attachment to a specific outcome. But, those things weren't realized though. This is more about being more content to fantasize than act. Okay. And, I think that with you dealing with that in the present moment, it would make sense that for some of you, you're kind of going back to this place of this is not what was supposed to happen. So with the Five of Swords, we're talking about extreme miscommunication, fighting, somebody who is looking to get the upper hand here. I look at this as somebody who realizes that they're hurting another person, but I don't think that they really care because they got what they wanted. A lot of times this is going to be about somebody who is purposely being a dick, forcing their point of view on another person. But the communication is way off with that. Okay, so future conditions, justice, all that's going to get fixed. And with the sun being there, it's almost like looking at, the truth that's bringing balance to somebody who is trying to kind of like dance around the truth, so to speak, here with the Five of Swords, But I also look at this and I think that you may be dealing with a person here who is making you feel like you have no right to be upset over the fact that things didn't exactly work out the way that you had envisioned with that Seven of Cups, because it could have been so different. It could have been so different. But again, with justice being in future conditions, definitely we're talking about fairness and balance, justice for all. I don't think that it's about you needing to make a final decision. Definitely making sure that things are fair and balanced in your life. But with this above that, that's definitely saying that those things are going to be amended or corrected, or somebody will be held accountable for the way that they have acted. Your best path to follow, the Four of Cups. Now, what I would say here is don't get caught up in the emotional baggage of what you don't have. This is something not being good enough, not having, that one cup that makes everything better, right? I look at that and I think you need to be careful about getting into this place emotionally where you become, lethargic and you're not feeling anything anymore or becoming numb. because with the sun, we're talking about, a situation that is very wrong, very wrong, that is going to be corrected here. And there is the potential for new energy. Just be careful about where you go emotionally, especially when it comes to, dealing with the emotions of the past and how things could have been. In your environment, the tower, this was not something that you were expecting. And with the tower, this is a situation that is completely collapsing. I almost look at this as, I cannot believe that this person acted this way or treated me this way. I was not expecting this. What I thought or what I fantasized was something completely different. Now, for those of you who are not dealing with a person in particular, or I should say a relationship here, if you're dealing with like a work situation, you are in a very cutthroat kind of environment. And I don't think that it's a place where you're very happy. I think that you had a very different, vision of it, but that didn't come to be. But again, we're talking about things being fair and balanced and corrected here, especially if you were wronged in the workplace. But that's no more. And I do think that this is definitely the shock that just kind of like brings the fantasy down of how, it could have been or how you envisioned it to be. But with the sun, you're seeing the bigger picture much more clearly here. But emotionally, it's not going to be something that you're very happy with. And I would say with the Four of Cups, don't allow yourself to stay in a situation that is not enough for you. That's not good enough. Wow. Your hopes and your fears, the Ten of Wands, so carrying this burden, right? The hope there would be that all of that is being released, that you're not kind of carrying that shit around with you anymore. The fear would be having to deal with so much with the fact that, everything is kind of collapsing here. And for some of you, yeah, absolutely, this could have to do with a lawsuit. But I still think that this is about it working out for you, although you didn't want it to go this way. But the Ten of Wands, again, it's fearing that, all of this stuff is going to kind of like be dropped on you and you're not going to be able to deal with all of it. And for the hope there, it's getting rid of the burden. Oh, and then coming out the King of Wands. All right, so with the King of Wands coming out, if we're talking about you, and we're talking about what, you are projecting outward here, it is about being more wise about where your passions are leading you, but it's also about moving on with passion. Being able to let this go and seek a new adventure. Now, for some of you, this is going to be about the person that you're dealing with here, who is going to be held accountable for their actions and what they've done. Because it brought your castles in the sky completely down. Completely down. And, that may be what is happening here. The third-party situations here and things needing to be corrected, things not being fair. But the thing is that this isn't what you expected. Not at all. Not at all. Now, if we are talking about a person here with the Six of Swords, looking at the Seven of Cups, you have moved on from the difficulty of the past. You're moving away. You're moving on from this. There, was every reason to believe that things could have been better. But that was not reality. What reality was something you were not expecting at all. I look at the Three of Wands in the Tower and the Five of Swords, especially with that Seven of Cups, and go, no, that is not what you thought was coming toward you. And I don't feel like we're waiting on this to happen. I just think that this is something that you weren't expecting. And I think that it kind of prevents you from moving forward in the way that you thought things were going to go. Whether we're talking about relationship or work. But with the Three of Cups coming out now, absolutely, this could be about support, and then looking at justice, having the support of, the legal system here and having things work out and somebody being held accountable, absolutely. Or we could be talking about the problem and there being third-party situations. For some of you, it is going to be about seeking support after having dealt with something so abrupt and drastic. But with the King of Wands being there, I don't know. I feel a little bit iffy about him because we're talking about, I love him, but he's not known to commit to anything or pay attention to the details. That is something that is going to be very important for you coming out. So like I said, this is either going to be about the person that you're dealing with, or this is going to be about what you are projecting out. Male, female, fire, doesn't matter to me. But there were things that you had moved on from the past, specifically having to do with someone or a situation that didn't exactly go the way that you had expected. Wow, Pisces. The good news, though, is with the Sun and Justice, this is going to open up an opportunity for you to follow a passion, absolutely, with the King of Wands being there. But also truth and clarity, absolutely, and everything being brought out into the open, where somebody may have been trying to and believe. So just be saying that you need to just be within the flow of everything that is happening. There is nothing that you really need to do right now. And when you let, the situation kind of unfold, that is where the new beginning is going to present itself. But you need to believe that all of the good things that you have expected in the past can happen again. Not necessarily in the same situation here, but you can't let all of that come down in a way where you feel like it'll never be a reality for you. And that's kind of where I go back to with the Four of Cups being there. But I also look at that, though, too, and I certainly wouldn't accept anything less. No more settling for shit that's not good enough anymore, right? And then Wise Leader, you're a beacon for others. I can't remember who the hell else got that one. Wise Leader, though, needing to kind of like lead yourself through a barren spot in your life, right? But you're also showing others that, you have the ability to be a leader in your own life. But you're going to have to be smart about the action that you take here. The bigger picture is not something that is meant to be realized yet. But don't give up on that Seven of Cups. And I can't believe that I'm saying that, because I see it as like almost innocent and pure. Like, I can see how good things could be, but then, somebody completely destroyed that for you. And it's not fair. They will definitely be held accountable for their actions and what they have done, but you can't carry that kind of emotional burden of things, never being as good as you had hoped they would be. Just be very careful about who you're dealing with coming out here in future conditions. I worry a little bit about that because it's not expected. It's not expected that you were going to have to deal with this, and then I worry a little bit about the Three of Cups. But you're going to be able to guide yourself through, this desert in your life right now, and eventually things are going to start to get better here for sure. There is going to be, the beginning of something that's going to be worth believing in for you.